Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. We have received registrations from all over the world, so I'm not sure in which time zones you are. We are delighted to present to you the experiences of co-creation, involvement of consumers in design and development of new products. And this event is going to consist of a number of presentations and discussions in which we'll try to share some experiences of our project and also insights for food companies and food scientists worldwide. So we are going to stay with you for about 2 hours. We start with several short presentations. As Katarzyna mentioned, if you have questions during those presentations, please put them in the chat and we'll try to collect them and answer either in writing or also during the discussion panels. And we aim to finish the entire event within about 2 hours. So without further delays, let's jump into the opening explanations of what we were doing and what type of knowledge we could share with you. When you think about open innovations in food sector, almost everyone agrees that external sources of inspiration are extremely important for design and development of new products. So companies work with scientists, startups, regulators, NGOs, but sometimes also consumers. And our project and experiences of co-creation that we are doing are strictly focused on involvement of consumers in the design and development of food products. At the same time, when you think about the role of consumers in food industry, companies tend to say that consumer is the king. But if you think about the reality, consumers tend to be involved in the later stages of product development process. And let's try to use the analogy of taxi drivers. Imagine that the food producer is a taxi driver with a car, with petrol, and knowledge of topography of the city in which he or she drives. And now, if food producer is a taxi driver, so would the client of a taxi really accept the situation when you are being driven to different locations? People show you the place and ask, is this the place where you wanted to go? And unfortunately, this is exactly what is happening in the industry. Producers are designing and developing products which are only afterwards tested, accepted or rejected by consumers. So all of those acceptance tests, sensory panels happen in the later stages of product development process. So what we are trying to do with consumer co-creation is going back to the basics, trying to ask consumers for ideas and inspiration for new products before they are actually selected for design and development. And this is exactly something that we designed and tested with the unique creation methodology of consumer engagement labs. The team at Faculty of Management, University of Warsaw, developed the methodology and tried to test it in the first countries. And over the last 4 years, we actually managed to roll this out to 16 European countries, work with over 80 consumer groups, over 40 companies, and the tangible outcomes of this of those processes were 22 products that entered markets in a number of countries. So consumer engagement labs and the way how we understand co-creation is very different from traditional focus group interviews, acceptance tests, sensory studies, or hackathons. all of those techniques are also based on qualitative approaches, but slightly different from experiences of consumer engagement labs methodology and co-creation, which starts with consumer expectations and desires to design certain products. So first of all, what we are trying to do is to focus on a process, not a single meeting. So the engagement of consumers in consumer engagement labs takes up to several weeks. And in many cases, it could continue over a number of months. So we try to develop psychological attachment. We try to make sure that consumers stay connected, motivated. And of course, if you build engagement, you also have to rely on teamwork. So in our methodology, consumer teams start working together and jointly approaching certain challenges. And finally, the overall premise of consumer engagement labs is the empowerment of consumers who step by step start understanding that they have the skills, they have insights, and they have the potential to actually influence what is being offered by food companies. Trying to summarize some basics of the methodology. In the current version, after 4 years of work, we came to the conclusion that the preferable way of delivering consumer engagement labs is a process that would altogether take almost a year. But you know, there are creative stages and there are stages when a product is developed and introduced to the market. So we really start by sitting down with a local scientific organization and the company and trying to define specific challenges, select product category, design tasks that would be used as the basis for creative processes. Then a lot of time is spent on recruiting the right type of consumers, and I will try to tackle this afterwards. And I know that colleagues from different countries will also talk about those challenges. Then the actual co-creation process in the current version of our methodology takes about 5 weeks. And then we progress towards planning commercialization and market introduction. So what we do is parallel work with 3 or 4 panels of consumers. Each consists of several consumers who are non-experts. And that's, again, very important element of our approach to co-creation. We try to involve people who seem to be average consumers, who don't have expert knowledge about food technologies, who are not influenced by ideologies or approaches to specialist diets. But at the same time, we also try to ensure diversity in a number of ways: gender, urban, rural location, different regions, different age groups. But sometimes the diversity could also be approaches that might be quite surprising to researchers or market agencies. A recent example, we are right now in several countries working with consumers to design new snacks for young generation. And apart from young consumers, people studying in high schools, we also have parents and grandparents, so that different groups of consumers look at the purchasing behaviors and preferences of people. We started the workshops as face-to-face interactions, but in 2020, due to COVID, we had to switch to online delivery, and it turned out very successful. So we were surprised by the effectiveness of the online communication channel. So right now, the methodology is both suitable for face-to-face and online delivery. Trying to provide a sneak peek of what we are doing and how exactly it's being delivered, we usually start with projective techniques. So we spent a lot of time working with consumers using personas. So trying to talk about idealized fictional characters, which could be very convenient ways of addressing certain challenges. Giving you an example of older generation, because some of our labs were delivered with older consumers. Sometimes for the participants, it's just easier to talk about other people and their digestive, gastric problems than talk about my own experiences. So projective techniques in this case are very relevant, and they really prove useful. From the projection and understanding needs and challenges, we can progress to a number of assignments which help consumers understand the market, visit local shops, look into own fridges, talk to colleagues and peer consumers, so that the team of consumers builds up knowledge and awareness of the market before they progress to creative exercises. And again, we have a series of techniques that could be used to inspire consumers and make them more willing to generate new ideas. And finally, we have those parallel consumer panels, 3 or 4 of them, which generate a number of ideas and then spend a lot of time discussing and selecting those ideas, also sharing them with companies and trying to identify the most promising candidates for the final product. And as mentioned, this overall process could take several weeks, but at the same time, it's also followed up by subsequent work of the company that was involved in this process. So the company receives a number of product ideas that they would come from several teams that worked in parallel. Each team would generate a number of proposals and far longer list of less detailed ideas. And part of our methodology is also consisting in helping the company to assess, identify high potential proposals, and then progress towards product development and commercialization. And this is the part of the process that usually takes far longer than the actual consumer engagement. And as part of the development and commercialization efforts, the company would normally also go back to consumers to verify suitability of certain ideas and feasibility of the final product. Interestingly, the methodology is not just suitable for new food products, but we were also successful in testing this with new packaging designs. Next week, we have another online workshop that is specifically focused on packaging, but turns out that the approaches and the consumer creativity could be suitable both for products and for packages or labeling. As mentioned before, in the last 4 years, the Consumer Engagement Labs methodology yielded 22 new food products introduced to 16 European markets. And we are also working on new packaging designs and more products in the pipeline. Interestingly, the proposals coming from consumers were usually quite surprising and unexpected by companies. So don't be surprised by the consumer creativity. Sometimes some of those ideas are really things that corporate R&D experts would never came up with. In general, when we think about certain tendencies and proposals coming from consumers, those are either totally new product concepts, so types of products that have never existed before, or ideas linked to reformulation of certain products, elimination, supplementation of ingredients, or, and the third area was particularly interesting for many food companies, there could be many, I would say, minor ideas which increase the convenience for consumers, and they could make really successful winning products that would definitely overcome some of the deficiencies that consumer could identify. So in general, consumer co-creation is the best way of matching the needs of consumers, because those are ideas that are specifically proposed by people who trust in their own guts and also expect to be listened to by food producers. Ideas or products are co-designed by consumers, but of course there is very important role played by corporate R&D experts who need to take up the job of formulating the actual product and translating the expectations of consumers into something that would potentially be implemented and delivered through the sales channels. Giving you some examples of those products. Let's think about older consumers from Lithuania who wanted to have the crispiness and the crunchiness of granola, but at the same time were afraid of what baked cereals could do to their teeth. So based on the expectations of consumers, buckwheat-based granola was created. Gricola is a really attractive consumer product that has a low glycemic index, that is as crunchy as granola, but is definitely safer for the teeth. So surprise discovery in the creative process that normally would not be expected by companies. Another example from Portugal, Bolachas Digestive by Vieira de Castro and hypermarkets Continente. Biscuits that are not sticking to the teeth, that again have lower sugar contents and are definitely suitable for people with low glycemic diets. Another example of a product that would probably be sort of unexpected in the corporate sector, kombucha from Croatia. Imagine that in the summertime, you can buy a small bag that contains probiotics mixed with instant coffee. And you can just add this to a glass of cold water. So you have probiotic drink that is very easy to buy, transport, carry with you, and prepare. And the convenience and the health aspects are really amazing compared to traditional kombuchas that would require storage and keeping this in the fridge. So apart from those several product ideas, you can actually go online to our website to find descriptions of all of those 22 products. But what we've also discovered was a number of things that we call proto-ideas. So small hints, suggestions, inspirations coming from consumers. Consumer insights that are easily used by companies. And in many ways, the engagement in co-creation processes opens up ways to better understand the needs of consumers, listen to the voice of consumers, and think about the specific requirements. The methodology of consumer engagement labs, it's already quite comprehensive and well refined. So what we offer is a set of tools for scientific organization or market research agency that helps deliver the consumer workshops, templates that help at different stages of the process, starting from preparing promotional materials, recruiting consumers, registering the results of subsequent sessions. And we also have a lot of training materials. So in the last years, we tested and developed those instances of methodology in different countries. Year by year, we were trying to refine and adjust it to new market segments and types of food products. So what we have right now is a fully packaged methodology that could be easily rolled out to a number of food or packaging products in practically any country in the world. So this was my initial introduction to the methodology and the project that we are going to talk about. I hope that those initial informations are a good starting point for discussion. And in a moment, we are also going to listen to voices of a number of people who were involved in delivering workshops and working with consumers based on Consumer Engagement Lab's methodology. So thank you very much for your attention. We are going to switch to the discussion part, and as mentioned before, we encourage you to go online and also check the list of 22 products that were designed and developed as part of Consumer Engagement Lab's project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are going to listen to several presentations of people who were involved in conducting the workshops in their countries. And we will start from the presentation of Dr. Anna Wielicka-Regulska from University of Life Sciences in Poznań, who will give a talk entitled Engaging Older Adults in Product Co-Creation. And Anna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for introduction. Thank you for having me today. We are really pleased as a team to share our experience regarding co-creating with older adults. Let me give also recognition to other members of our team. It was Elżbieta Goryńska-Goldman, Michał Gazdecki, and Monika Wojcieszak-Zbierska, who were also facilitators during 2 cycles of consumer engagement labs. And also I will mention Paulina Wiza-Augustyniak as our administrative help. I would like to today to share our experiences regarding recruitment process. As Professor Klincewicz said, it is very often a long process when we are asking consumers to engage and to give their contribution and fully commit. So this is a really very crucial stage when we are working towards success at the end of the process, I mean the final outcome. Here's also our example of the product we were able to deliver to the markets. We were quite proud of it. So let's start, let's move to the next slide. I would like just to mention that we are witnessing growing number of older person in the population. As you can see, Europe has the largest elderly population. Also, we are going in 2050 has 40% older people in the market. So this is a really a huge stake for companies. So being prepared for this process and looking into this specific segment, I think will play a crucial role in future. this group is quite specific, so I would like to show you on the next slide that we were asking people who are, let's say, not active yet. They are not active on a job market, so they potentially they have free time, but really they have also some physical and physical limitations. And we were asking them, because we run this physical process, so we were asking them a big favor, because we would like them to engage for 2 full days. There was a break, 1 week between the meetings, but we wanted them to be involved during the process for 2 full days. So having some experience in market research, we noticed that it will be a huge challenge to find people who would like to take part in the process. We also had those selection criteria which, that was mentioned before. So we needed to ensure gender balance, education level also had to be diversified, place of residence, so also not only urban but also rural areas. And the most crucial element, food involvement, we had to engage people who are reflective about their food consumption. So seeing those constraints, one can say, we were quite afraid if we are be able to attract enough participants in our workshop. So even we were asking about somehow abolishing this criteria of not giving any compensation to consumers, not to give them any kind of gratification, because we thought that it's really a big favor. But fortunately, I would say we had to proceed with this requirement of no compensating consumers for taking part. And I think it was a key to the process, because otherwise we probably would have people that would come from completely different reasons than being interested in food, being interested in food consumption. So I would like to have another slide. Okay, thank you. We are also quite lucky being guided by the University of Warsaw. They really have a wonderful team supporting in a whole process. So because we thought it will be crucial to craft communication, yes, to convince those people who have no expertise to commit those 2 full days to the food development. So we got some general indications what kind of arguments we should use. So we showed that participants are going to take part in preparing concepts of new products, and they are going somehow to help companies in this process, and even to change the market. They also will be able to interact with peers. and just exchanging information, whether connected to food or their personal interests. They will acquire new knowledge, and the process itself will be joyful. Yeah, so even if there will be some task, then they will be not monotonous. They probably would like the way we will conduct the workshop. I could say that those recruitment process was, I would say, a big success. We wouldn't expect it at all. We didn't have awareness that we will be able to attract 50 persons, being asked to recruit 18 indeed. Also afterwards we conducted in-depth interviews, and we asked participants what are the main reasons that they took part. So they mentioned curiosity as a main factor, and also desire to meet new people, even if they have limited understanding what they are going to do. Because even some mentioned they thought they will, for example, take part in a culinary workshop. There was a limited understanding. Okay, next slide. Thank you. I think that the benefits we tried to convey were quite accurate, and the other part was communication channels we used to approach this target group. So it was also somehow indicative from the University of Warsaw. We use channels relevant for this group, so clubs of seniors, magazines targeted at this specific group. So here you can see a sample that appeared in one of the magazines. Also parishes, yes, because we would also like to attract people who are active, who just are interested in a social life. Okay, next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and just as a summary, I would say that the key to the success in recruitment, so recruiting people without any gratification and for a long run, expecting high involvement, you should use the right communication channels specific to the target group. Also, the message should arise curiosity of applicants, even if you we are not going to say in details, because sometimes the details can be
Anna, I wouldn't like to interrupt, but we are running out of time, so please.
Okay,
remarks.
So just also managing expectations, yes, that we not digging into details, because perhaps they will thought that they will not be able to accomplish the task, and also the opportunity of social interaction and the perspective to entertain the process. It was, in my opinion, the key to the success of the recruitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. And now I would like to invite Dr. Kiki Zinova-Diu from Perotis College from Greece, who will talk about her experiences with consumer engagement labs in Greece.
So, hello, thank you for this great invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here with you and share our experience from this project that we really enjoyed, since we participated actually 2 times in 2020 and 2021. So as Katarzyna mentioned, my name is Kiki Zinoviadou. I'm a food scientist by studies, and I'm working at Perotis College in Thessaloniki, Greece. And the consortium consisted of from 2 other partners as well. So Exoha, a startup that is working actually with IT technology and the use of it in different types of industries and the food industry as well. And the Pasias company, which is a very popular company in Greece in related with meat-based products, and it's actually 120 years old. So in the market, it's one of the leading companies. And this was the industrial partner. Please. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So actually, the aim of the project that we participated in 2020 was to design new food products for consumers that were aged above 65 years old, so for the elderly. And we realized that during this exercise with my colleagues that actually it's a group that has been neglected for quite some years. But as the previous speakers mentioned, the statistics show that this is a very crucial group because the population is getting older and older. Actually, it was just 2 days ago that the population of the world exceeded the 8 billion people. So we see that this group will just keep on growing. And we also faced some challenges, as Anna mentioned previously. So the first one, of course, was the selection of the participants. Apparently, the workshops took place in the beginning of the COVID time. So in Greece, we had a lockdown. And for that reason, we could not meet in person as all over Europe. That's why it was designed that all the workshops will take place online. So unfortunately, although in the beginning we had a lot of much more people showing interest, the moment we explained to them that it was to be online, we saw that a lot of people were not that confident, actually because they have low information technology literacy. So this was a criteria that apparently it was not so well thought in the beginning. It's something that came up actually in practice when we tried to find the participants. The participants were split in 3 groups of 5. So we had 3 sessions running in parallel. And actually, the fact that the sessions were online meant that we had to meet 10 times in 2 weeks. So actually, it was a meeting every day. While in the previous year, we were told that the whole workshop was run in 3 days. But as you can imagine, it's difficult to keep people of that age in front of a screen for a long time. So this was actually the second challenge, that it was quite difficult to synchronize the programs as well. We managed because we also found, as Anna mentioned, some initiatives, and actually their happy face in the end that you see on the image in the end of the workshop was the gift that they got back from this whole process. And apart from all these meetings, we also had the final meeting with all the participants and the representatives of the companies as well. So the ideas were proposed, and it was also a very special day that ended up with the receipt of the final certificate. The next one, please. So the methodology that was designed by the University of Warsaw was quite unique and very interesting. And as Dr. Sorry, Christoph, I can never spell your last name. So as Christoph
no problem at all.
In the beginning, it started with making the profiles. So each group had to make a profile, an avatar, as we used to call it, because it was pretty apparent that people feel more comfortable when they speak through another person and not by themselves. And what Christoph mentioned was really true, because we saw that by designing this profile, by designing this avatar, they also put their personal input. For instance, there was a lady that, although she's 65, her mother is still alive. She was like 95, and she has to take care of her. And it's something that really makes her everyday life complicated. This is what she confirms to us later on. And actually, it is something that she also brought to the character. So she was actually speaking not via these characters, she was sharing her personal experience, and in her everyday life, actually, she has to take care of 2 different households, hers and her mother. So it was a really nice input that we got. However, through this whole processing, it was difficult sometimes to make sure that the time of each one of the participants is balanced, because of course you have ones that are more extroverts, so they were speaking more loud, sometimes trying to convince the others about their opinion. So it was always the role of the facilitator there to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and everyone takes the time to talk in the end. So we came up with 3 different personas, 2 female ones and 1 male one, but the backgrounds were quite different, and this actually reflected the backgrounds of the participants as well. Our participants had a quite diversity. We had a good gender balance, but we also had a nice diversity regarding people that live in town, the people that live in rural areas, ones that were more educated or had lower levels of education. And actually the fact that the workshops were held online allowed us to have participants from all over Greece. So that was really interesting as well and gave extra diversity to the project. Next one, please. So there were a lot of tasks that the participants had to undertake. Some of them were related with the development of the product itself, very nice methodology that was designed from the University of Warsaw, but they also had to do some teamwork. And the nicest activity was to visit an online shop, and online supermarket actually, and write down notes. And it was really interesting because it was a time of the pandemic. It was a beginning, so they were not really used to online shopping. It was a bit of a challenging to convince them to do that, but it was really interesting at the same time to see how they evolved through this process, and in the end, how they took this knowledge also and use it in their personal life. The next one, please. So we ended up with a proposal of new products. At that point also during this exercise, it was quite challenging to make sure that they will focus on the product itself and not start asking questions about food science and food technology and in general things that were of interest for them. But it was really interesting to see that for their taste, for their age, there are quite a lot of aspects that should be taken into consideration when we develop new products. Of course, the first one was health, because they were at an age that, like the profiles that they designed, they have some health issues, especially, they should be a bit careful with the salt, with the sugar, and also with cholesterol levels and so on. Also, they are very interested in flavor, because as we know, as people get older, their flavor and their taste buds are not functioning that well. So that means that they need larger stimuli in order to enjoy food. So this was something that was brought up a lot into the discussions, that they would like the food to have more intense flavors and to remind them more of what they were used to eat when they were younger. So this is something that came up, and it was really highlighted in a lot of the products that they proposed. They also care a lot about locality. They want, and also the traceability. The people of that age really want to eat local, especially the Greek consumers. They really love Greek products also to enhance their economy. And they also want to know where the products come from and the whole, the traceability through the whole chain. And of course, convenience, which is important for all. So the final product was actually a meat product, a type of sausage that was with it was a combination of serving all the meats. So it was of low fat, 3% only, without gluten, without preservatives, so a very natural product. And also, instead of different preservatives for chemical ones for the preservation, Greek herbs were used. So it is something that actually served all the needs, not just one, and they were really, really proud of the product itself. So this is how it looked in the market, that it was designed and developed by the meat company. So I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And now from Greece, we are moving to Bulgaria. and we will listen to the presentation prepared by Dr. Rada Dinkova from Plovdiv University.
Hi, so I'm Rada, and I'm gonna explain our experience with co-creation process. So this is our team. We are coming from the University of Food Technologies in Bulgaria. So this was our first challenge to make up a team, I can say, because okay, we are mostly food technologists. But for this kind of studies, we thought it would be very nice if we have a team that actually comprehends in itself not only technologists, food technologists, because we tend to speak a lot about food and complicated stuff, but also with economists. So our team is half economists and half technologists. And I would like to start with the quick statistics that will probably be exactly not very different from the one that we already saw, unfortunately. And what I can say for Bulgaria, this data came this year, actually, that here, unfortunately, almost a quarter of our population is elder one. That means over 65 plus. So it was nice to have this project and work with people that age. But this had a difficulty because, as you know, almost half of the population is making the GDP of the country. So that's kind of a tricky with making new products, especially for such kind of groups. When talking to the business, that's, as already mentioned and by Christoph and also by Anna, it's kind of neglected part. The other difficulty that we met is that most of the population of Bulgaria lives in cities, which gave us an opportunity, kind of, because we had to explain about the food a little bit more, which we love to do. Just because when moving to the city, people lose their connection with where the food comes from. So that gave us a chance to explain a little bit more, which was nice. Okay, the challenges that we saw, we actually split in two, and we started with the consumers, basically because what we saw is that they're not very well informed about food. Why there is so much misleading information that comes from the TV. And we know that they spend a lot of their time in front of the TV. So there are a lot of people talking very different stuff about one thing. So we looked at that and find out that they don't trust a little bit the food that they're buying. So from that point of view, the other thing that we found out is that they don't feel heard. Like they accept only what's already presented on the market, and not everything that's there actually apply to their needs. So as a benefit of these two, basically, we saw that we could give a food education a little bit, and also involving them in this co-creation session helped make them heard by the companies. So what we did, of course, you already heard a little bit by how did the session go. So we had 10 sessions with 3 groups of elderly consumers. We did online, of course. For us, it was also a challenge, this thing that they have problem with being closed due to COVID. So they have difficulties with technologies. We found that emails are not working. There are only some social medias that are working. Some of them, for example, had Facebook, most of them not. But Viber, they did all have Viber. That's something very popular here in Bulgaria. So So that was the first thing. And then the recreation for people from rural areas, that was also a difficulty for us. We almost contacted every community center in every big city in Bulgaria so that we can ask them to go to the local community centers in small villages and give us help there, so people can go to the community center and be helped with the computers and Zoom and all these online manners. But actually that had its good part, because again we taught them something about digitalization. So we digitalized our elder consumers, which was nice. Yeah, the outcome of the first week when we created this attachment to the people was that they were very involved and very strict group. We had an experience afterwards with groups with younger people, and we found out that with the elders, it's great to work with. They're very strict. They're always on time. And when they say, okay, we're going to be there, they're there. It's not like, oh, in the last moment, I'm sorry, I have a problem, I couldn't come. There's nothing like this. They're very, very involved on what they're doing. Also, the other thing is that they got really attached to the personas. For example, we had this lady that in the end came and said, okay, I have a little bit of a quarrel with my husband because he is asking me all the time, who is Stefan? This is the name of our male persona. Who is Stefan and why are we talking about him all the time? So that was actually very fun. Then the next week, of course, they came up with the ideas that were presented afterwards to our company that we worked with Katrine. So she already, based on that, make the product based on this idea. So for the company at this point, it was really nice to hear about these new ideas that people have, and just to make them feasible for them to actually produce and present to the Bulgarian market. So it's a perspective of a niche that is, yes, as I said, a little bit neglected, but still people there are needy for this stuff that is missing already. Then we do have another 3 meetings afterwards in April and May with the same consumers. Okay, a smaller part this time, but we do have another meetings. And what we find out actually is that this online shopping that we made them do in the previous sessions, as Kiki told already, they actually are using this kind of services. For me, it was actually unexpected, but I think 2 of the ladies, they do use it very regularly as a way for shop. And the other very nice thing is that in this meantime, when we have a little bit set back of the COVID and some time to go out, they actually met each other without us. So they kept connected in the group that we had. They're still actually sending some gifts and some congratulations for birthdays or for name days and stuff like that. So they're keeping connected, which is good, and find some new acquaintance at that age is kind of nice. So we talk with them about some other stuff, so shopping and COVID, about food delivery and food packaging, ideas and presentation of new dishes, which was quite nice because we presented these ideas not only to Katrine, who already have her product. I will tell you a little bit later. Katrina, I know I'm running late. As I thought, I'm speaking too much. Sorry for that. I had a class and I'm in just my... Yeah, I'm going to go fast. Sorry. Just lost my idea. Anyways, go to the next slide, please. So about the business, the thing is that in Bulgaria we have a lot of SMEs, which is quite nice for the industry, but only 15% are going with the food and drinks. So this number is quite small, and most of them don't have an R&D. So for them, it's kind of a good way to meet a consumer and get ideas without have a whole team creating new products and test new products. So the challenges we saw with them are two. Basically, they're overwhelmed because they're small. They're overwhelmed with the work and with the documentation that they have about the food safety and quality standards they're keeping. And another challenge is also that even they are consumer ignorant. As Christophe said at the beginning, consumers are reached in the end of the process. So they're using them as testers, and not all of them thought that they can actually involve and use their ideas in creating new products. Okay, so for us, it was a way to help them, and also to help them not only in finding ideas, but also to focus on what is actually what the market is demanding. So we worked a little bit with that. Also, we helped them with the realization of the product, with the technology, and also the presentation, the labeling, and stuff like that. So basically, we as a university had a chance to work with the business, which we do, but this time from another perspective, which was quite nice. So can you move 2 slides ahead, please? Yep. So this is the product that was presented by our partner, Venet. And it was really nice to work with Catherine because she is a small farmer, actually, that have a really small production line. And she was very involved in the process. All the time she was asking, why can I be at all the sessions? Why should I be there only in the end? I want to talk to these people. And we were, no, please, you should get the final idea, and please let us do our job. And afterwards, she made her interview with the elders, and from there come some perspectives. For example, that elderly people don't like this to be on the label, so they feel a little bit offended by that if something is exactly for elder people. So she found it another way to make it better, like, for example, suitable also for adult connoisseurs of good food, which was quite a tricky way to present a product. What else did she find out is that this product should be available in small neighborhood shops, which we still have in Bulgaria, which is quite nice, where everybody knows who is selling the food. And based on this product that she already launched, she was preparing another one that was quite almost the same as the consumers present and wanted. And she has this idea to have a sales representative in the third age that can actually go and present their product by herself. So for her, it was quite insights of way to market her product, not only for the creation of the product, but also for the marketing of the product. So what can I say for the university? Sorry, running, is that basically for us, the greatest part was that we were translators. We were translators that can help see both sides, from business perspective and from consumer perspective, because they are actually very different, and nobody is sure what stands on both sides. So it was nice way to meet them in a very safe environment and facilitate all these processes. Am I on time?
We are running out of time, but I'm sure that you will have the possibility to talk in the discussion part. So now I would like to give voice to myself and talk a little about our perspective as a member of the research team based at the University of Warsaw. And here we've got our whole team, and I would like to summarize some issues and to discuss some insights we had from the experience of supporting the processes in different countries. And in the beginning, I would like to point out that that co-creation in NPD processes may involve a variety of stakeholders. In the RESEL, there were universities, food companies, and startups at some moment. But depending on the aim of the process, also other organizations and individuals may be included. For example, NGOs or public authorities and others. As regards recruitment, as Krzysztof mentioned at the beginning, and also my colleagues also talked about it, it is of great importance to recognize the diversity of the consumers we would like to invite. In specific groups, there may be some specific factors that should be taken into account to have a representative group. Another dimension here is the level of expertise consumers have. This is a question whether we would like to work with lead users or average users, people who do not have deep knowledge about the product of this or the service that is discussed. In order to avoid dropouts, it may be advised to recruit some backup participants. Another strategy to enhance participation is offering some kind of remuneration. It doesn't need to be financial remuneration, but this is important to think about it. Also, we might prevent dropout by making sure that the participants will feel involved, will feel that they have agency to really influence the process, that their contribution does matter to us as organizers. And that is why it is so crucial to ensure that the atmosphere that enhances the participants' engagement in the process. And this aspect leads me to discussing the challenges that we may face during the creative process itself. What is really important is the friendly atmosphere that may stimulate the teamwork and participants' creativity. Participants work with people who they do not know from their everyday life, and they may feel nervous, they may be afraid of being judged, and it is very important to ensure that they feel that they may express their opinions and experiences freely without apprehensions, without feeling that they are judged. And as it was said before, consumer engagement labs were conducted both in offline and online settings. Switching to online format was necessary because of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, as my colleagues have shown in their presentations, switching to online do not have to entail limitations of participants' creativity. And as regards another important challenge, there is the problem of dealing with expectations that various stakeholders in the process may have. High level of participant engagement is very desired in the creative process. We want them to feel, we want them to be creative, to think of different innovative ideas. However, it may result in high expectations toward the tangible effects of the process. The expectations and needs of the participants and the possibilities of the companies may contradict. Some consumers' ideas may not be feasible from the perspective of the producer. Therefore, it is important to describe the possible effects of the process realistically and be honest with the participants regarding what can and what cannot be achieved. And in the RESEL project, we had non-lead users, so they didn't have knowledge about the food technology, about the process of producing the the food product. So this is the situation when the participants had to be briefed as regards what can be achieved and what cannot. Another crucial aspect here that needs to be addressed is the issue of ownership of the product. Highly engaged participants may feel entitled to authorship of the product, which may collide with the perspective of the producer who invested in the final product, who produced the product. In order to prevent such situations, it is important to think of the consumers as partners in the process of the co-creation, and the participants, the consumers, should be treated with respect and recognition of their work and should be somehow remunerated. As I said before, it doesn't need to be financial remuneration, but we need to think about it beforehand to give something to participants. That is why the rules of collaboration between these various stakeholders should be clearly defined in the beginning of the process. What may also occur problematic is the expectations of the companies who may think that the consumers will provide them with complete elaborate ideas of innovative food products. As Krzysztof said earlier, the innovations that we may get as a result of co-creation process with average consumers, non-lead users, are rather incremental and need to be further developed by the specialists, by the experts in the research and development departments in the companies. Coming to an end, I would like to highlight that the co-creation process is a participatory experience, participatory process, and engagement of all stakeholders is very important for the final effect of the process. Okay, so that's all from me. And now we can switch to the questions and comments section. And I would like to give voice to my colleague, Oskar, who will lead this part.
Okay, so if you, because I see no questions in the chat yet, but you are very much invited to post them there. You can say who you want to address in the chat. Like if it's a question specifically to one member of our team here who's of our group, or if you want to ask question directly, you can just raise your hand and I will like keep track of who is doing it. I think because for now we have no questions, I would like to start with the questions that also occurred during the presentations. So I would like to ask Rada, and it can be also to anyone else, but if you could share one important thing that everyone who wants to engage consumers into co-creation should remember to ensure the success of the process.
Okay, please. I was just registering for the next event. Sorry for that. Just a little bit distracted.
No worries. So once again, so if you could say one thing that any person who is engaging in co-creation processes has to ensure to achieve success in the whole process.
Oh, that's a nice question. I can see. Can I answer with one word?
Of course.
Sure. So maybe it will be the willingness to change the environment of the market. Because for our consumers, it was, as I said, quite difficult, but still we saw their incentive of being part, a live part. With the producers, it's quite the same. So it's not only the idea of being presented on the market, but how are you present on the market and how actually you can help with your products, not just the profit of it. So, and for us as a university, of course, it's just the willingness for being in between these processes and help to create a fair and trusted and transparent actually market of food stuff. So this is, I think this is how can I explain that.
No, thank you. I see Dr. Wieliska also raising her hand, so go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to ask especially Rada and Kiki, who facilitated those online meetings, is there any key factor that could prevent people from dropping out of the process? Yes, especially when we see it in a long run, so many meetings consecutively taking place.
Can I respond to that? Can I start?
Sure, there you go.
So I think it was important really to clarify from the beginning about to make sure that they know what is the schedule, so that they can also arrange, you know, their other commitments and this not come up with changes, because although it was COVID, still they had to do some things. For instance, some of them had to take care of the grandkids, or, you know, maybe they were locked down, but still they had to do several activities that they were involved. So one thing was to really present the schedule from the beginning. And of course, the other thing, and this is something that came up and it was really nice, was to create a nice atmosphere so that they were waiting actually to meet the people. And as Rada mentioned, also you could see that they were smiley and happy and engaged, and they kind of felt that, okay, maybe it's a tough word, but like useful. They felt that they were doing something, they were feeling creative.
Yep. Okay, I totally agree with Kiki, and it's when they have some problems, because, okay, I would say, for example, timing is very important, and you cannot keep them sitting a long time, because okay, some for health issues, but still, for example, I cannot sit such a long time on one spot. I need to move around a little bit. So this is something that is important, and if you can make the time that's convenient for them, it's not a problem. Not easy, so maybe smaller groups with nice time schedule, it's something that might work for sure. But as I said, it depends on the group that you're working with. With elders, it's quite nice. With youngers, that's much more difficult.
And can I just deepen this issue? And do you see any opportunity that the company would work with a certain group of people really in a long run? I mean, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years even. Is it feasible?
Okay, I will say yes, because I saw it already. I can say our partner, she was very involved in this, and she had her communication with them after we finished with this part of the project for a very long time, and I think that they're open for that. I think nobody minds to be asked about stuff like this. So if you have the nice way and the producer are willing to do that, yes, they can help, and they're willing to help.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think there are some questions sliding up in the chat. So I'll start with the first one. I think Krzysztof may be the best person to address it. So the question is from Branka Zizic, and it's about the intellectual ownership with co-creation, the question of intellectual ownership.
Thank you, Oscar. And I see the questions in chat from Branka, from Rossi, from Sonia. I will try to answer them quickly, because those are actually very important points to consider. And when we were designing Consumer Engagement Labs methodology, those were exactly types of things that we were trying to address. So first of all, Branka's question about intellectual ownership or intellectual property rights. The way how the methodology is structured is, of course, also offering some safeguards for the companies to ensure that they will be entitled to the products or the outputs of the process, but also in some ways to ensure that the creative inputs of consumers are acknowledged. So we have some templates, we have some legal documents that could be used, but importantly, remember that we are talking about co-creation. So the way how we structured the process ensures that you could not really say that there was a single individual that would be the source of the final product. So it goes through cycles. There are team members that work on refining the proposals. There are several teams that also provide the inputs. And finally, there is a company and scientific organization that also contribute towards the design and final development. So I would say IPRs and consideration of the authorship are very important aspects here. And we were really trying to take this into account, because otherwise there could be many commercial risks or also ethical challenges of the process if those aspects are not properly addressed. Now, moving on to a question asked by Rosie about the level of involvement of companies. Again, that's one very important point to mention. Co-creation in many contexts is delivered by either directly food companies or market research agencies working for those food companies. And it's very time consuming. It involves a lot of efforts, and sometimes people from R&D or marketing department just don't have time for this type of commitment. So what we did in the methodology was to reduce the time requirements from the companies in such a way that the company starts getting involved in the beginning of the process, explaining the priorities, sharing some knowledge about the target product category, and then substantial elements of the process are happening without the need to involve corporate representatives. They join the process at later stages. So a lot of tedious and time-consuming work is done by scientists or market research experts. And well, to some people, it might be surprising. Many companies were afterwards also asking for access to transcripts or recordings of the sessions, but representatives of companies were not required to spend tens of hours working with all of those single groups. And this is really effective from a commercial point of view. Afterwards, once the creative process is over, there is another time-consuming element that companies will have to get involved with, but that's yet another aspect of the methodology, so subsequent design and development of the product. And now, very quickly, I also see questions from Sonia about designers involved in the project. Yes, but at specific stages, depending on the product category. For example, right now, this year, when we are working with young consumers and designing snacks for older adolescents, corporate representatives are joining the process at relatively early stages, but then they don't need to keep involved throughout the entire length of creative workshops. So it's part of those considerations. And the second question from Sonia about assessment tools, whether we understand if co-creation went well. So that's also something that I guess Katarzyna, Magda, and Oskar could answer. But of course, every iteration of the co-creation process is an element of our learning cycle. So every time we try to draw some lessons learned, improve the methodology. You saw also reflections of our colleagues from different countries who were working online or offline, who faced some recruitment challenges or IT literacy problems. So step by step, we are taking those considerations into account to further refine the process. And of course, we were also trying to compare the outputs of online and physical meetings. So as a very general summary, the online processes in the times of COVID were found surprisingly successful and effective. So in many cases, we discovered that actually there might be no need of physical interactions, physical meetings, and the online channels offer you the opportunities to involve consumers from different parts of the country, and also keep them engaged. So, for example, schedule the sessions in the evenings multiple times rather than bringing people to one place just once per week. So I'm not sure if maybe Katarzyna would also like to address the question about the challenges and comparison face-to-face and virtual meetings.
Yes, I think there are many aspects of the differences, and it may be hard to compare them from the perspective of those who worked only in offline settings. However, as Krzysztof said, we see that it worked, and at the time we didn't have any other option if we wanted to pursue the project. I saw the question about the materials, the publications about the process. We have prepared several publications which are still under review or are coming soon, and we will be happy to share the information with you about our publications. But still, I think that there are both pros and cons to online and offline settings. But as Krzysztof said, it was really nice to have people from different backgrounds, and also the online setting, the online format helped to adjust to the schedules, to the everyday life of people. For example, in some countries, older adults also were still active, professionally active, and they had work. They didn't pensioners, so they weren't pensioners. So it was really nice to reach them, to have a diversified group.
And by the way, in the same way, now when in several countries we work with high school students, it's again, just like with older adults, it's more convenient for them if they could connect in the afternoon or evening several times per week instead of just being forced to drive or get a ride to another city and just spend several hours in physical meetings. So sometimes it's also the issue of convenience.
And also, I think one more remark. I think that the COVID pandemic and also the experience of working online also changed the landscape of social research, because sometimes participants even want to meet the researcher online because they don't have time. It is more comfortable, convenient for them. So I think this is the question for the future, how this situation will develop. But this is also something that we may face now more often.
So I understand that now is the time for our small panel discussion. So afterwards, if you will still have questions, please feel free to ask them either in the chat or by unmuting microphone. But with our presenters, I would like to ask you several relatively simple but also tricky questions. So let's start with the first one. Let's really think honestly about the benefits of consumer co-creation, benefits for different groups of stakeholders. And maybe when we think about beneficiaries of co-creation, let's put consumer in the first place. Who would like to say a few words about benefits for consumers who are engaged in co-creation or benefit from co-creation? Kiki.
So I think that the biggest benefit for them, especially for this age group, it's that sometimes they feel, as I said, neglected and not really taking their opinion really seriously, is that they feel that their voice can be heard. And really, in this case, develop products that really fit the needs. As I said, at least from the group from Greece, what we received was really the fact that they really feel that the food does not taste as good as it did. So it was really important for them to stress that out and to focus on that, on how to enhance the flavor, keeping the food product healthy at the same time. So at least for their perspective, and it really doesn't matter if it is online or by face, it's I mean, the whole process just gives them the opportunity to make their voice be heard, and they really enjoyed that.
So Anna, I remember I was observing your workshops in Poland. Those were face-to-face meetings. And I remember that on the last day of workshops, some consumers were asking when they could meet you again. So they didn't want the process to stop. Could you comment on this?
Yeah, I think that they were somehow empowered because also it was indicative in other research, yes, that process in itself influence highly later behavior of those participants. So I think that they felt this during the process, that they are being more, for example, open, receptive, and it brings, as my colleague said before, a kind of agency, yes, that they can steer somehow the market and not otherwise. So I think it's from this perspective, it could even change, yes, their daily food-related behavior, but even far away, yes, their social behavior, being more open, being also more knowledgeable about what is going around.
And Rada, we heard from you the story about Stefan, the mysterious gentleman who was, well, I'm not sure if it builds a high level of trust in Bulgarian families, but I understand that this was also part of the everyday life. So they became so familiar with the personas, and they started thinking about them in everyday life. So what were the other benefits?
Okay, this was a huge one because as that's okay, I guess a real situation, and they were talking every day, the same person. They at some point I was wondering if they will ask, "Where is Stefan and can we meet him?" So yeah, this involvement was great, and the methodology is built that way that actually, even though at the beginning they were quite not so willing to share, because they didn't know each other, and yeah, even though at that age people are more open, still they had this feeling. But in the end, as I said, when we were even finished with this, they actually kept connecting, and the group is still working. Like, they send messages all the time. So for me, this is a great benefit for them. And also, as I said, from my perspective, great benefit for them is that the educational effect that the co-creation methodology have, especially for people that are not acquainted with food. And I don't know about other countries, but here in Bulgaria, everybody has opinion about food, and most of the time it's wrong. So for me, actually, this is a great benefit. And third one is trust. Because when you explain to them and when they meet actually the producer, it's quite nice way for them to, okay, the producer is a real person. There is somebody that is actually making your food. So it's not only these jars in the shop or these other products. There is a person behind that. So that helps.
So the producer, let's move to benefits to companies, because that's the reason for launching co-creation processes in the food sector would also be to develop new products and successfully market them. And you've heard that we worked all together with 43 companies in different countries. I think, interestingly, Greece is well overrepresented. We even have some of the companies joining us in this session. So Kiki, you work with Pasias, with Exocha. We also afterwards in Greece worked with Conva and small Greek producers. So Angeliki is also here with us in this session. What do you think are the tangible benefits for companies? Why would they want to work with consumers in this way? Kiki.
I think it's the best focus group they can get, actually. It's, of course, it's not like a sensory analysis would be like that they have a final prototype and they just ask consumers to try it. But it's really a very useful method to get the perspective. And since nowadays the market is more, as we say, market oriented and not like consumer oriented, they can really get a good insight of what consumers think. And especially since the academic, let's say, partner assists in the process of the selection and setting the criteria and reassuring that the methodology is the appropriate one, it's a very useful approach for them to really get the insights. At the same time, it's important that they also work with an academic partner, because I think that the perspective of the academia is useful for them, and it's really nice to build bridges, because at least in Greece for quite a lot of years the industries were not really collaborating with academia, and it's good to see that finally they start holding hands and moving forward.
I see Rada would like to add something.
Yeah, okay, same situation here in Bulgaria. We do work with the industry a lot, but it's another kind of work. It's just cases that they need for the moment, and it's not like a further way of beneficial for them and for us, of course, way. So what I was going to say is that the co-creation actually gives them another way of publicity, because if they invest in publicity, it's a very expensive thing. So to create thing for the TV or for the papers and stuff like that, everything is paid. With this kind of consumer groups, they actually have another way of publicity, because it goes from mouth to mouth and from person to person in social media, and not only on the street and meeting with other people. So it's one way to just put their product on the market, and that it can be recognized. So another way of marketing.
Excellent. And I see we also have with us Milica Pojic from Novi Sad, from Serbia. Milica worked with us on co-creation of packaging, and since you raised the hand, what could we contribute to the topic?
Yes, actually, although we didn't were the part of these co-creation sessions, we actually in our institute organized one co-creation session regarding innovative food product development. And what we realized about the benefits of co-creation with consumers for the industry is regaining trust of consumers into industry and how they are developing products, because we realized that certain portion of consumers lose confidence into how products are produced, how they are labeled, are there all relevant information are on the listed on the packaging. So in this process, we realized that consumers are regaining trust into industry and how they are creating products and how they are placing products on the market. So this is one of the benefits for the industry. So
consumer trust and the ability to really demonstrate that the industry is listening to consumers.
Yes.
And that leads me to, well, when we think about those benefits, that leads me to question to Anna, because I know that you wrote book chapter about responsible research and innovations in the context of co-creation. I think we talked about benefits of co-creation for consumers, for companies, but let's also think about broader benefits for the society. What types of ethical or societal benefits could co-creation bring?
Yeah, for sure. As the name speaks, that we have co-creation, so we have contribution from many partners in this endeavor. So we somehow can create the market that the voices of, let's say, less respected groups are heard. So in my opinion, also involving scientific partners, companies, consumers, even authorities that could be interested in those processes in terms of, for example, food councils that are active in some cities. I think it's something that could change the food landscape. Definitely, yes. The contribution from many many stakeholders in a food market. Yeah, that's my general comment.
Thank you. And let me quickly move to another question that's, well, it was partly answered by some of the previous intervention, but let's talk about a very specific design feature of our methodology, because it's not typical feature of co-creation that we use scientific organizations as sort of translators, interpreters, intermediators between companies and consumers to make sure that consumers feel respected, that consumers can open up and talk to trusted partners, and they could sometimes also complain a bit about producers and products in the market. So what could scientific organizations add to this process? How can they support co-creation? Who wants to go first? So just unmute yourself, Kiki. I see that you would like to say something.
Yeah, I prefer to go first so that no one takes my ideas and my responses, so it's to make sure that I say. So I think it's really important that academics are involved, because at least for the minds of the consumers, you know, talking with someone from the university, it's like a seal of excellence and trust, as you mentioned. So it's really important that they feel more comfortable about that. And I also think that, at least in our team, but from what I realized in most of the teams happened, is that the facilitators were people that from marketing, but also people from like food science, like myself, that I'm a food scientist, so from different fields. And in that respect, since you have different experts, it's how to say, like more convenient and to give to the consumers all the questions that they have. There were certain cases that they had technical questions about how a product is produced and what certain ingredients do, which is something that sometimes the marketing team misses. On the other hand, if you only have food sciences, in many cases you miss the marketing perspective and how things in the end can be sold. So the idea that the academic teams, and of course you need sociologists to make sure that, you know, you approach the people as you should. So the whole approach that involved a lot of scientists from different disciplines, I think, gave this holistic approach that was a very important factor for the success of the project as a whole.
Okay, now I get what Kiki means. Yeah. Okay, so basically the same, but I still will go with the idea that they're talking different languages. The business and the consumer are totally different languages, and I can give you a small example if we have time. For example, I do teach quality management to students that are third year, and I always ask them, okay, now you have your product, who do you want to sell it to? And the answer always is to everybody. So our business is actually doing the same. They want to sell to everybody. It's not working like that. So we cannot do that. And I know they have the marketing divisions and stuff like that, and people that go to consumer, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So in my opinion, there is the university or the scientific organizations are a really nice mediator, because they can find the way, having this team of people with different backgrounds that can go to the consumer and talk their way, and then actually have this huge information that is not actually technical or adequate for the production, translate it and give it as a small amount of very strict things. You should do this, because the business wants this, and this. He doesn't care about all the other stuff that is gathered in between with on a language that they don't get. Because I want my sandwich to be tasty is something that it's not working, you know.
Anna.
Yeah, I will also agree with colleagues. What I would like to add that sometimes we could be kind of advisors for the companies because there are many points that we have to decide, taking into account uncertainty, yes, and even risk. So sometimes it's good to have the another part that have this general outlook of from the consumers to the from consumers, from the markets, that could somehow help. And also we are treated as neutral partners, trusted, so it's good for the consumers. They are willing to commit, and for the companies, because we sometimes even take this administrative burden, so and also could give them their relevant advice.
So it's by the way interesting, because we managed to establish a huge network of scientific institutions in 16 countries of Europe. And I would say that those institutions are trustful and caring partners for consumer research. And sometimes it's a bit different from typical market research agencies that just assume a lot of additional jobs and assignments. Here, the process of consumer engagement labs was paying a lot of attention to ethical dimensions, to consumer engagement, empowerment. So I would also say that scientists who are involved in working with consumers and companies in those various countries would probably ensure certain standards of professional conduct that would be highly desirable for companies. So that's sometimes different from what happens in the typical market research. Anyway, but let's move on. I have one more question to you, a very practical one. Think about one major challenge that you've had in your co-creation process. If you can't say just one challenge, let's put more of them. I remember from your presentations that well, in many cases you were referring to challenges in recruitment. Sometimes there was the issue of IT skills, sometimes the fear of not keeping consumers committed and having dropouts, which by the way was interesting because the methodology must be special in some ways, because we hardly had any dropouts throughout the whole Europe. So people, once you get sucked into the process, you don't want to leave. But maybe you can comment on your challenges. And just go on and unmute yourself. I see that the question was scary.
Okay, perhaps I will start. I think for us as a scientific institution, the biggest challenge was to balance, let's say, the expectations or even inputs from different parts. So I mean, from the consumers and for the companies. I am even unsure if we did it well, but just allowing this co-creation, so having those ideas from the consumers and mixing them, enriching them with the input from the companies, how much, for example, companies can change the concept that was at the beginning developed by consumers. So for us, it was, I think, the main challenge. Should we allow them for serious modifications of the concept, or just holding them a little bit back?
And small adjustments, yeah. Rada, Kiki, who wants to go next?
Okay. So I'll go with the same what I said. Okay, with us also the biggest challenge was with the recruitment at the beginning. Now it's fine. The beginning, yeah. So it's still I don't know if we change to another group, because now we have a group. But if we change, it's always a problem of yeah, just convince them. Come the first 2 times. It's like having a TV series that you don't find very funny at the beginning, but then after the 2nd episode, you're very involved in the thing. So it works the same way here.
So when you start working with your Stefan, then it's like the next episode of the soap opera, and you want to come back.
Yeah, it's something like this. Very nice. Yeah, example. But another thing is, I can say for the companies, in our experience in Bulgaria, it's really nice to work with small companies, and new companies, new emerging companies that are looking for new markets. For example, with the first company that we worked with, it was very easy because, okay, we wanted to get involved, and at some point she just came and said, okay, do you have heard about this project? I really want to get with this project. Can you help me? And I was like, yeah, we are looking for somebody to work. And then, so it was very, very easy to do that. With the other, it's not so easy. With companies that are already established and have a way of work, it's kind of hard to make them comprehend another way of thinking. So I can say that for the business, okay, for us, it's really better to work with small emerging companies than already established businesses.
That's interesting. When I reflect on what was happening in all those 16 countries, in some cases, we worked with really large companies. In some others, those were startups, SMEs, and that's true that sometimes when you have smaller company, there is far more involvement. Sometimes the whole management of the company is trying to carefully analyze those insights, particularly because in many cases, smaller companies don't have substantial budgets that could be used for a number of different consumer insights projects. So they enjoy every minute of contacts with consumer panels, whereas in large corporations, there could be established procedures and ways of doing things with respect to every single new product introduced to the market. So then it might be difficult to tap into something that innovative and radical.
Can I add something?
Comments? Yes.
So apart from also for us, of course, the biggest challenge at the beginning was the recruitment and teaching them how to get connected to Zoom and, making sure that the connection is good and that everything is in place. But I would say that as a session we're passing by, another challenge that we found was also to to really explain to them what innovation can be, because sometimes, you know, the consumers, they were trying in the beginning to think this of something super different than what is in the market, and you know, something completely new. But with the time they realized that just changing a few ingredients but giving another functionality, for instance, that's also innovative. So it doesn't mean that you know, it's rocket science, that you really have to develop something from the beginning. It can be modifications, but still bring a product that it's much more functional, much more useful, much more convenient, and probably much more successful in the market than what was already there. So it took a few examples in the beginning. You know, we had to give some examples, and then they felt free to give their own input.
Thank you. So I will try to ask the same question to members of our team, maybe starting with well, the longest veteran of this project, so Magda, who started working with consumer teams in 2019, in the beginning when we were shaping the first versions of the methodology. What do you think, when you reflect about those last 4 years, what was the biggest challenge of co-creation?
Well, for me, the biggest challenge is making the process work in a way that will somehow satisfy needs of all the stakeholders engaged in the process. So firstly, the consumers, secondly, the companies, but also us as the scientists, specifically working on the co-creation as our topic of research, and trying to develop the methodology in a way that will be satisfying to the parties engaged. So this would be the real challenge.
Balancing those different interests and expectations. Katarzyna, you, apart from working with older consumers, you also right now manage very ambitious and challenging processes of designing snacks for young generations. So that's totally different target audience. And do you think that there could be some challenges when we switch the target audiences or experiences of different types of consumers?
Yes, of course. I think each age group, or any other group that we define based on some factors needs to be approached in a specific way. And I think as regards the older adolescents that we work with now, and our colleagues from other countries are working with now, there is also this problem with recruitment as regards the availability of these people, as young people are usually very busy with their work, maybe not with school and other activities. But from my perspective, what was quite challenging, what is still quite challenging for me, is my willingness to help people who work with consumers in their own countries, and usually I cannot do this because I don't speak usually the local languages. So this is like the situation when you want to support people and you cannot do that. You cannot, you know, do things for them because they need to do this by themselves. But I also think that as a researcher, as a person mostly connected, working in the academic setting, it is really fascinating, but also challenging to understand the needs, the expectations of different stakeholders. So this is something, it's a great opportunity to learn for me personally.
Thank you. Oscar, you have also the experiences of coordinating co-creation of packaging, which might be slightly different from food products, but what do you think are the key challenges here?
So the first challenge that led to, I think the one that was the biggest, was to adjust the methodology to co-creating something totally different, because we were talking about packaging rather than food product. So we cannot use the same methodology, and also the stakeholders are different because we're talking about takeaway food packaging. So and also we were involving professionals, so people who are busy like by default. So I think the second one was that emerged out of adapting the methodology was the fact that I intended to put more emphasis on individual work. So having homeworks which will be accessible and also that we will be able to collect from the workshop participants on time, and to design these homework in such a way that is stimulating their creativity, but not railroading them into the solutions that we see kind of in the horizon, on the horizon. So I think this is the thing that was the biggest one, to make a stimulating, interesting, but not to guiding into one direction homeworks that can later stimulate group work.
So thank you, and let me move on to Asif as well. Asif, as a marketing professional with experiences in a number of industries, you could certainly suggest what do you see as the biggest challenge of co-creation? Why do you think companies don't do that much co-creation? Why it's so unique for many industries?
Well, I believe first we have to acknowledge that there is an absence of education. This is not a vocabulary very common within organizations. At least the clients and the brands that I worked with, they did not have any idea about co-creation. On the other hand, with regards to the more progressive and promising companies, there has been a lot of influence by Apple as an organization, and especially Steve Jobs. And the idea being, that the consumers do not know what they want, and we have to create those needs and necessities for them. And that is one school of thought, where they believe that by involving consumers, you would probably give a substandard product because they bring a limited knowledge base. But by creating something with the use of specialists and being able to manipulate consumer psychology and thought, we would be able to create something that people would actually want and desire. So it's creating a new need, like having a new iPod, having a new iPhone, and those things.
So it's like the opposite of disruptive innovations that would come out of R&D departments, but rather trying to carefully analyze consumer insights and, well, listening to the voice of consumers, as mentioned before. We are slowly coming towards the end of our session, but I saw questions popping up in the chat about materials, deliverables, reports, and publications from the project. So we are, this event is part of dissemination efforts of the project, and in the coming weeks, we are going to publish online several reports that include manuals, blueprints for food companies, summarized needs and expectations of different groups of consumers. So stay tuned, and we'll definitely send out links to all of those materials to all people who register for our events. But being conscious of time, we still have 2-3 minutes for any questions or comments that you might have. So if you want, you can just unmute your microphone and talk to us all, or send your question in the chat and we'll try to answer. Asif?
Right. So no, I would like to take the last minutes to propose a vote of thanks for all those who decided to join into this event, our lovely audiences. And we are really grateful for their participation, and we believe that they will continue to benefit. And I'd like to tell them that this is an ongoing process. The project continues to inspire and to communicate and to lead the way for co-creation. So if they ever want to connect with us, they're more than welcome to approach us, and we would be very happy to continue with this conversation. So thank you all for being part of this.
I was going to say that we are just waiting for the next step. Because, yeah, it's a great procedure and we are just looking up for what's coming next.
Thank you. Arthur, did you want to ask a question, or was it just a general support?
I was just clapping, I'm sorry. It was the applause, I'm sorry. No question today.
Thank you. In terms of follow-up, well, you never know what the future holds, but we expect that EIT will continue supporting consumer engagement labs in the next period, so the next 3 years. we don't yet know all the details for sure. If the methodology could hopefully be used for designing products or working with groups of consumers that have very specific challenges or special needs, so that there is a reason for using public funding to support development of such products. At the same time, we also firmly believe that this is something that could be done purely commercially. So we have those wonderful partners from different European countries, and food producers are really welcome to also considering collaborating with the local organizations and working jointly on some of the challenges. I see a question from Sonia, who mentions that you would really like to share with you the functions, opportunities, and help support that food designers can give to these co-creation processes. Definitely. So the same suggestion for all of you, please stay in touch with us, reach out to us via LinkedIn, respond to also our email messages about this event, and we'll definitely want to keep in touch with all of you and hopefully inspire the use of co-creation throughout the industry. Milica?
Yes, actually, my question to you, since you developed very comprehensive methodology, and this process is kind of explorative, did you think about making this methodology standardized? To make a standardization in methodology to be applicable throughout food industry.
Well, it's actually
like standard method for determination of mycotoxin, for example.
Yeah, it's. I think we are getting there slowly. That was the reason why we tried to work with so many different food product categories and packaging categories and consumer groups to compare, draw conclusions, analyze transcripts, look at effectiveness and efficiency of different elements of this process, so that hopefully we can just propose standardized elements, which still, since this is qualitative technique, they are not going to be fully standardized, or we don't expect that those are types of communication that could be, for example, outsourced or fully supported by artificial intelligence. There is a huge role played by experts, facilitators, moderators, and this will still remain exploratory, because creativity and innovativeness are, well, difficult to forecast and definitely difficult to standardize. Maybe summarizing all of our discussions, I could also mention that next week we are going to have 2 additional online events focused on specific aspects of co-creation. Next Wednesday, we'll have event about packaging co-creation, and Thursday will be devoted to the ways how co-creation could be used to serve the needs of underprivileged or overlooked groups, using the example of older consumers with whom we were working in the beginning of this project. So if you would like to learn more about consumer engagement labs, please feel free to join us also next week. And we'll reach out to you via email. We'll send you links to presentations and materials. And hopefully we'll see each other and collaborate in the future. Thank you very much.
Have a nice
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.